Hey everybody, it's Chris, MTGO's Rec Start, and this is the video deck tech for the blue-black Tezz deck that I'm playing today. This one is basically imported more or less from the one that top-aided Legacy Champs last year. It's pretty close. I think I made the sideboard is quite a bit different, but I think that the main deck is like 59 out of 60. But I'll go ahead and explain everything anyways. Obviously, the appeal of it is that you're a Tomb Chalice deck. You play Chalice of the Void, you have Sol lands and everything, but unlike the red Stompy decks or Angel Stompy or any of that stuff, you can play Force of Will because you have a decent blue count, thanks the Baleful Strixes, the Tezzerets here. Now, your blue cards, other than the Strix, are all kind of haymakers or combo pieces, so it kind of stinks to have to exile them with Force of Will. That is something worth considering, but it lets you not get overrun by opposing combo decks when you don't have an early lock piece like a Chalice or a Trinisphere. Also lets you kind of protect your big haymaker spells. So anyways, that's kind of the appeal of being able to run a blue-based Chalice Stompy deck. The Leyline of the Void, Helm of Obedience combo, a lot of people aren't playing it main deck right now. It was very popular to play it main deck during the Treasure Cruise era. I still think that it hits a lot of decks, and it's nice to be able to just have a combo kill out of nowhere rather than just go the pure control-y way. I like the idea of having the sort of combo control deck where you can lock people down and then just have a quick kill. So I've kept it in here in the main deck, but if you didn't want to have it, you could maybe play some more, like play Jace the Mind Sculptor or something like that in place here. Possibly some main deck removal, Toxic Deluges or something like that if you were so inclined. Maybe Ratchet Bomb. Again, I have some of that in the sideboard, but that's the kind of thing you probably could have in here main deck. The Planeswalker package is 4 Tezzeret Agent of Bolas and 2 Tezzeret the Seeker. The great thing about the Tezzeret Agent of Bolas is off of any of these mana rocks, the talismans or the mirror signets, so you can sometimes play one on turn 1 off a tomb or a city, and then on turn 2 you can drop Tezzeret Agent of Bolas. He threatens to ultimate very quickly, but you're not, unlike an Affinity deck, you're not going to be able to just kill the opposing player with his ultimate right away. But what he does do is he searches for your combo pieces for your Thopter-Sword combo, just searches up Strixes, whatever. With this +1, he can also make something a 5/5, which is going to beat pretty much anything, including sometimes a Tarmogoyf. It's going to outclass pretty much anything you're going to see on the ground in a game of Legacy. And so yeah, I like him quite a bit. He's a little tricky in knowing kind of when to go for the +1 route and when to just start making 5/5s and swinging in. But the great thing about that is that against control decks, for instance, they think they've got a Jace and that they're safe. And because you got nothing on the board, we can drop this, turn a rock into a 5/5 and swing in and kill the Jace, for instance. Tezzeret the Seeker will search up specific artifacts. Costs a little bit more. You don't get the turn 2 play on this guy, but he can search up the Helm of Obedience for you if you have a Leyline in play and you just want the quick kill. He can search up Ensnaring Bridge or the Trinisphere, where that's appropriate. Some decks have real trouble beating those cards. Show and Tell has a real tough time with this main deck. Obviously, a Storm deck is going to have a tough time with this main deck. So again, if you can live to the point where you can get this guy down, you can search out the lock piece that you need, and then it kind of allows you to have a more varied sideboard with artifacts. Transmute Artifact, of course, will do the same thing. This card, it's not Tinker because you don't sacrifice the artifact until the spell actually resolves. It's not part of the cost of the spell. So you can see if it resolves before you have to lose anything, but unfortunately, like I say, you'd have to pay the difference. Nothing in here really costs more than 4 or 5 for the Batterskull, so you can pretty much get anything you want once you're in the mid game with this. But again, a lot of times you're just going to use it to go get the Helm for an instant kill, or you can sacrifice an artifact to go get the Thopter Foundry to start going off if you have the sword, or vice versa. So the Thopter-Sword combo, I'm sure most people are familiar with. Just real quick, in case you're not, you spend 1 mana, sacrifice a non-token artifact. So you sacrifice the Sword of the Meek. It goes to the graveyard as part of the cost of activating this ability. That puts a 1/1 token creature into play. That creature sees that Sword is in the graveyard, which triggers its ability, so that it comes back attached to the 1/1. So basically, forever, however many mana you have, you can gain that much life and create that many 1/1 flying dudes, the last of which will have the Sword attached to it. So that's pretty much a nightmare for opposing aggro decks to wade through, and it also allows you to generate a crap ton of dudes to make a kill with Tezzeret, Agent of Bolas in some games where you're sitting behind an ensnaring bridge, for instance. So that's another sort of side benefit of it there. Baleful Strix, it ups your blue count, it replaces itself, it basically acts as a removal spell. It flies, so it's going to take care of pretty much anything that's out there. So and again, that's this kind of the card that makes everything work, even though it's not the most important spell. If it wasn't for Baleful Strix, you'd have to have something else in here to support the blue count. Again, because you're playing Chalice of the Voids, you can't play Brainstorms, Ponders, the stuff that you would normally play in a blue deck. So this gives your deck a little bit of velocity and a way to kind of churn through the deck. As previously mentioned, you have these mana rocks here. They really help. They give the deck some resilience against Blood Moon effects, for instance. And they also just give you some acceleration because a lot of your spells are very expensive. And again, your spells being very expensive is really nice in a Miracles heavy metagame. One of the things that you'll see tonight is we don't really play against the Miracles and Elves, which I think are the two best matchups for this deck. And I think it's a difference between the 2-man queues metagame and the daily events metagame. I don't generally play daily events because I do not have that much time to set aside at a particular time at somebody else's schedule for the most part. But I think that I will have to take this into a daily event at some point because the daily events are where you're seeing a ton of Miracles and Elves right now, which are very good matchups for this deck. And the 2-man queues, as you'll see tonight, I was playing against basically a Delver and an Affinity deck, and nobody's seen Affinity in a year. So it doesn't give you super accurate, but I did play against two pretty legit Delver decks, so you'll get to see that. Anyways, just to wrap up real quick here, the sideboard, I have to. The worst matchup probably is Bug. So a lot of the stuff that I have in here, I want to make sure that I can board the forces out because they're basically terrible against Bug. It has so much incremental card value. So in paper, I play a Misdirection, but I didn't feel like spending 110 tickets to get one on here. But the rest of my plan is intact there. Basically, bring in the Abyss against them. Guardian Beast, they can't Abrupt Decay, and it protects all of your other lock pieces from being Abrupt Decayed. Similarly, Notion Thief to bring in against their Ancestral Visions, Brainstorms, things like that. So those parts are all coming in there. Spellskite as well can be useful in that matchup. And then some of these are just kind of toolbox artifacts. Pithing Needle is great in a lot of matchups, certainly against Miracles, but also against like opposing Deathrise Shaman or something. Curse Totem for the Elves matchup, primarily, although it could be good against Death and Taxes sometimes. Defense Grid against other blue decks, because they will usually keep their forces and counter magic in, regardless of what you do, because they view you as basically a combo deck, or at least a deck that has 8 to 10 key spells that they want to counter, whereas if you against Blue-Red Delver, you don't really have a particular spell of theirs that you need to counter. So they'll keep their stuff in against you, so you can bring in Defense Grid while you bring out your counter magic. And then again, the rest of this stuff's pretty self-explanatory. Lodestone Golem, people have been playing this in the sideboard. I'll bring it in sometimes against decks like either against Storm or against just kind of sometimes the Delver decks that play a lot of spells per turn, and it's fine against Bug because they can't Abrupt Decay it. Against any of the red Delver decks, they're just going to bolt it, so it's not super impressive there. Anyways, and then Engineered Plague, once again, for Death and Taxes and Elves, and Toxic Deluge, good in both of those matchups as well. So that's the deck, and join me. You'll see a few match plays tonight, and like I say, at some point down in the future, I may try to take this to a daily event. I've been playing this in paper, so I'm pretty familiar with the deck, but I'm trying to get used to playing it online, and the sort of headache of painfully doing Thopter-Sword activations. It really kind of makes it annoying to play online a little bit, but again, I think in the right online metagame, this is a pretty strong deck, and so take a look.